Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Hilda the Tech Bay. Before we dive into today's topic, make sure you check out my previous video on the 6-month roadmap to becoming a business analyst. It gives you the big picture of how to break into the business analyst field, especially if you are starting from scratch. Today, we're zooming into the next crucial part of the journey, which is interviews. But don't worry, I'm going to be breaking it down in a way that is easy, practical, and beginner friendly. So before we jump in, several years ago, when I was trying to get into this field of business analysis, I had my very first interview as well. And I had so many pauses between sentences. I was so nervous. I was overthinking every word. And when they asked me that question, what is the difference between agile and waterfall? That question broke me. I failed woefully. I couldn't answer that question. I just talked and talked and talked and did not even make any sense. But guess what? I'm here today to help you get prepared for that interview and give you some tips and some frameworks that will allow you to succeed and get that job. Today's presentation will prepare you for the real world of business analyst interviews. Even if you're just starting out, I'm going to introduce a simple interview framework, show you how to use it, even without formal experience, and I'll walk you through common pitfalls and success tips. So by the end of this video, you are going to be feeling so much more confident to go get that job. So let's first talk about what business analyst interviews actually include. Like I said before, don't panic if you don't have the exact work experience. Focus more on how you think. BA interviews can vary, but they usually include behavioral questions where you talk about past experiences, teamwork, or challenges. You may get scenario-based questions where they ask what you would do in a situation. You probably also get a few questions about business analyst tools or methods like requirement gatherings, user stories, or agile. You may also get some technical questions as well. And occasionally, they may ask you to map a process or review a case study. Now that you know what to expect, let's dive into some sample questions that you may be asked in an interview and how you are going to be applying the framework called C.A.R.L to answer those questions correctly. What does C.A.R stands for, you may ask? C.A.R stands for context, action, result, and learning. And we have some sample questions here on the screen that we're going to be going over using the C.A.R framework to answer them. These examples are designed to help you tell your story clearly, confidently, and professionally during your BA interview. First question, tell me about a time you had to gather requirements from stakeholders who were unsure of what they needed. Using the C.A.R framework, I would explain and say, while working on a new scheduling module for a healthcare platform, stakeholders from different departments had only a vague idea of what they actually wanted, just that the current system was inefficient. I organized a series of discovery workshops using process maps and current state workflows. I asked probing questions and used visual aids to help stakeholders articulate pain points. I identified key bottlenecks and defined detailed functional requirements, which led to the development of a streamlined scheduling tool that reduced manual entry by 40%. I learned that guiding stakeholders with visual tools and focusing on outcomes rather than features will help uncover true business needs. That is for example 1. 2. Give an example of a time you dealt with a difficult stakeholder. This question is quite common in business analyst interviews. So let's see how I would answer it. On a finance reporting project, A department head was resistant to changes that affected their manual spreadsheet tracking. I set up a one-on-one meeting to understand their concerns, then demonstrated how the new system would reduce errors and save time. I also ensured that they had a voice in the testing phase. They became an advocate for the system and even trained others on its use. I learned that resistance often stems from fear of the unknown. Engaging stakeholders early and offering reassurance can turn opposition into support. That is how you could answer that question, possibly using the C.A.R.L framework. Question number 3. Tell me about a time you explained a complex technical concept to a non-technical audience. Using the C.A.R.L framework, I would say, during a data migration project, I had to explain API integration to clinical staff who had no technical background. I used analogies like comparing APIs to digital couriers that safely deliver information between systems. I avoided jargons and showed how this would impact their daily workflow. The staff felt more confident and engaged in user acceptance testing, reducing resistance and support calls post-launch. Tailoring the language to the audience made communication way more effective and helped me to build trust. This is how I have previously explained a complex technical concept to a non-technical audience in my past role. Number 4 question here is, describe a time when project requirements changed midway and how did you adapt? If I were to answer this using the C.A.R.L framework again, I would say on a payroll system integration halfway through the sprint, a regulation update required new audit tracking features. I re-engaged the stakeholders to assess the priority, facilitated a quick impact analysis with the dev team, and helped the product owner reprioritize the backlog, and we were able to accommodate the regulatory change without derailing the project timeline, thanks to fast action and clear communication. I learned that being flexible but structured in scope management is key in an agile environment. That answers question 4. Question 5. Tell me about a challenging business problem that you helped solve through analysis. I would answer this by saying a department was struggling with an inaccurate patient billing due to inconsistent data entry across systems. I performed root cause analysis and identified the drop-down fields in one system didn't align with the values in the billing engine. I worked with IT to standardize the values and map data correctly. Billing errors dropped by 70% and the reconciliation time decreased significantly. I learned that attention to data flow and small inconsistency can uncover major systemic issues. That will be answering that question using the C.A.R.L framework. Number 6, have you ever worked in an agile project? How did you manage your role within the agile framework? I would answer this by saying yes, I have. During a mobile app development for medication tracking, I worked closely with the product owner to break down epics into user stories with clear acceptance criteria. I joined daily stand-ups, facilitated backlog grooming, and ensured all stories were ready before the sprint planning. This led to smooth sprints, better developer efficiency, and early detection of potential blockers. I learned that active involvement in ceremonies and clear documentations are essential to success in agile environments. So this is how I would answer all those questions using the C.A.R.L framework. So do not panic. Most interviews won't hit you with all 6 behavioral questions at once, back to back, like rapid fire, right? And while these may not be the exact questions you'll get, think of them as a warm-up reps. You're not memorizing the answer, remember. You are building confidence. So take a deep breath. Channel your inner analyst when asked these questions. And remember, it is not about being perfect. It is about being prepared and ready to answer those questions. All right. Now that we have walked through how to ace these behavioral questions, let's flip the script a little bit for a moment, because just as important as knowing what to say, it is also important on knowing what not to do. On the next slide, we're going to be going over some common interview mistakes that can trip up even the most prepared candidates and how you can avoid them with confidence. One of the biggest mistakes I see is people rambling. You need a structure so your answers don't get lost. Another mistake, giving vague responses. Saying you are good or great communicator means nothing unless you show how you are a good or great communicator. Also, don't get too caught up listing tools. Instead, focus on outcomes and impact. Again, use the C.A.R.L framework: context, action, results, and learning to answer every question. I promise you, if you break down your answers into context, action, result, and learning, you will sound more professional in your story and in your answers, and I can guarantee you, you are going to ace that interview. So how do you fix all this mistake? The secret is the framework, like I just mentioned. Use it, practice it, learn it, and trust me, it works. Frameworks are like a secret weapon. That is why it is important that you use it, that you need it, and trust me, again, it works. The C.A.R.L framework will help you sound more professional, as I mentioned before, and it will definitely help you stay focused in situations where you are nervous and anxious during an interview, especially in-person interviews, or even Zoom or Teams interviews. Everybody gets nervous, especially when you're a beginner. So using the C.A.R.L framework will help you definitely kill some of those nerves and give you some of the confidence that you need to further you in that interview process. It's going to help you make your stories easier to understand, and it's going to help the interviewer see how you're thinking, which is exactly what a business analyst needs to do. So I know that some of you must have heard about other frameworks such as C.A.R.L, and you've been waiting. How come she never mentioned anything about C.A.R.L? Why is she mentioning things about C.A.R.L? So let's take a look at the difference between C.A.R.L and C.A.R.L. And I can say now confidently that having been a business analyst for several years, I prefer the C.A.R.L framework because I've used it several times during interviews and it has really worked for me. So let's take a look at the difference between C.A.R.L and C.A.R.L, and I will also be going through what C.A.R.L stands for. What is the difference between C.A.R.L and C.A.R.L? Simple. C.A.R.L includes something C.A.R.L leaves out, which is learning. And as a business analyst, growth is everything to me and it's important. C.A.R.L, which is situation, task, action, and result, separates situation and task, while C.A.R.L combines it as context and makes you reflect on your experience. It makes you sound more professional. But what if you had never worked on a project before? You wonder, so how am I going to use C.A.R.L or even C.A.R.L to answer these questions? That's okay. Here is how you can still use C.A.R.L to answer project questions for someone who don't have experience or you are just beginning as a business analyst. You don't need to wait for a formal job title to start thinking like a business analyst. You can use examples from school, side projects, or even your current job. Maybe you helped a charity event or solved a scheduling issue at school. Those are also great scenario-based examples that you can give in an entry-level position interview. Remember, the goal is to show your mindset, not just your job title. I previously mentioned that the interviewers are looking to see how you are thinking as a business analyst. So let's walk you through what that actually sounds like in an interview. So here's a great example of how you can apply the C.A.R.L framework even as a student or a new business analyst. Even as a student, you can still use C.A.R.L to answer interview questions as I mentioned. So for example, in this question, tell me about a time you had to solve a problem on a deadline. Answering with the C.A.R.L framework, you can answer and say, in a final year class project, we're missing key data 3 days before the deadline. I suggested a new method to collect data using a simple Google form and quickly got responses. Our group finished the project on time and got a top grade. I learned how to adapt quickly and communicate under pressure. Notice how the answers walks the interviewer through the challenges, the action that was taken, the impact, and also the reflection, which is the learn, which is L in C.A.R.L. That's what makes it memorable. So let's round this all up with some final tips on how to help you shine during your business analyst interview. Your voice is your superpower. So I would recommend that you practice out loud, have like 4 to 5 C.A.R.L stories ready and rehearsed different ways to frame them, and then during the interview, show you are curious, ask about the team when they ask you if you have any questions for them, ask about the product that you're currently working on or the company's goals. Lastly, record yourself when you are practicing for interviews, or ask somebody else to actually help ask you the questions as if they were the interviewer. If you don't have someone to ask you the questions, I would say you record yourself, as I earlier mentioned. Playing it back and listening back to your responses will help you to make adjustments, okay? It could be a little weird in the beginning, but it would definitely be super helpful for you if you don't have anybody that will ask you the question or be an interviewer for you at the time. So if you found this helpful, here is how you can keep learning with me. Becoming a business analyst is a journey, and I'm here to guide you every step of the way. Hit that subscribe button, watch the next video that I'm going to be putting up, and grab the free toolkits that I'm going to be dropping in the future. Let's help you land that BA role even without the tech experience. You've got this. I believe and I trust in you. Thanks for watching.